but I also want to have a good relationship with myself. And if I'm not loving myself and taking care of myself, how can I be available to be loving in the world? So I think that's often the piece that we miss or we neglect, especially those of us that are more caring individuals that care about others. We put our needs second, and that's sometimes appropriate, but it's also important that we don't feel guilty or bad because we're taking good care of ourselves. And sometimes that means having healthy boundaries where we let people know that certain behaviors are not okay, and in doing that, we communicate to them, this is not okay, but this is.
Another live stream coming your way, and today we are brought to you with our show partner for the rest of Q1, Mr. John Ford. Thank you for stopping by a mental health break.
Thanks, Vincent. Great to be here with you.
John was one of the more memorable incoming requests I've had where I got a chance to look at what he's got to offer, and he does so much for the mental health community. We're going to talk about his app. We're going to talk about his card set. We're going to talk about everything, some books. This is a mental health break, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in and helping make this now a top 5% global podcast. Your support means so much, and it continues to allow me to keep going, keep recording, and that led us to John Ford today. So, John, I would love for you to give yourself the intro. You could do it a whole lot better than me. Everyone, this is John Ford.
Thanks, Vincent. As I say, I'm super happy to be here. I think mental health is an important topic for all of us throughout our lives. Some may be thinking I'm a therapist, but I'm not. I started out in South Africa where I was born as an attorney, but it was from law, the practice of law, and seeing how ineffective what I would describe the adversarial legal system can be, where people just fight, that led me to mediation. And mediation led me to working with emotions. And that's really how I got into that sort of space of helping people to both identify what they're feeling and understand the importance of feelings as it relates to just to life in general and getting our needs met and figuring out how we get along with one another.
What's one of the first steps that people listening on could take to actually get in touch with their feelings like you're describing?
Well, I would say actually probably maybe the first thing would probably be more like a mindset shift. So I think for a lot of folks, we have a negative attitude towards our feelings. We think like they're the enemy, or I don't want to get emotional. We get all those kind of messages. So I think the first thing I would actually encourage is shifting that sort of perception that emotions are bad and making friends with them and appreciating that they're here to guide us and to give us insight about what it is that we need to do in life. But assuming that we have that in place, in other words, a good attitude towards them, I would say, being present to what's going on in our body, noticing, just literally, if you just think of the word feeling, and there's feelings, and then we sometimes use the word emotions sort of interchangeably, but feeling is really feeling in the body and connecting with what's going on in our bodies, and using that sort of familiarity to start figuring out again what emotion it is that is alive for us.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And your passion on this subject extended to you taking it so far where you made an app to help people get in touch with their feelings, get in touch with their emotions. I've used it. It's very user-friendly, which I love about it. John, what was the motivator to finally put all of this hard work into an app, easy accessibility for everyone?
Well, the journey, I didn't start with the app. Let me put it that way. The app has been sort of the culmination of a journey. What I started with was, and I'll show them my cards, feelings and needs cards. And these, as I say, I started using in my practice as a mediator when I realized that, when people are in conflict, they often have good intentions about how they're going to approach the conversation. But you get them into the room and they start talking about what's important to them. And the next minute they start saying things that they probably shouldn't, like a little bit of sarcasm comes in, a little jab here, a jab there. And so I was looking for tools or a way of helping people to have those difficult conversations without making things worse. And so the first tool that I started using and developing were the cards. And they're really like, you could sort of say they're prompts. There's 2 packs of cards, one with 56 feelings and the other with 56 needs. And they're really like prompts to help you sort of say, like, am I feeling this or am I feeling that? Because a lot of the time without those, people struggle getting a good sense of what's going on. So in any event, so I had great success, and they've really changed the way that I mediate using the cards. And then it was during COVID, that sort of terrible time, but also a time of opportunity, because it certainly helped me develop my practice in new ways. And I got contacted by app developers in Uruguay, and they said, are you interested in developing an app? And I realized this was my opportunity of taking and making the cards available in an app form. So essentially, the app replicates what the cards do, but it goes beyond the 56, because you now have access to 108 feelings and needs. There are a whole lot of tools that you can also use to help you develop I statements, to brainstorm potential solutions. So it's just a way of managing your relationships and the situations that inevitably come up in them, and getting clear about what you're feeling and needing. And just to quickly say, feeling and needing is if you sort of say, well, why have such a focus on feeling and needing? There was an author, Marshall Rosenberg, who wrote a book called Nonviolent Communication. And he would say, essentially, if we want to be empathic, connect with what that person is feeling and needing. So in our relationships, the more we do that, the more we acknowledge certainly what we're feeling and needing, but connecting with what other people are feeling and needing, that really helps. So that's really what the app does. It sort of, it's just a whole lot easier to have, the app in your pocket. You don't have to sort of worry about carrying the cards around. And then the other thing, because I also noticed with the cards, is whenever people would do that, let's say, can I take a photo? Well, with the app, you get to save whatever situation you've been working on.
That.
So another helpful feature.
Who would you say the target person is for the cards, for the apps? I know, of course, it can help everyone, but is there a specific group that you help more than others, perhaps?
Well, I would say, I think you're right that really they are a tool for everyone, but there's certainly professions where I've sort of seen it being applied and used more. So, for example, therapists, it's popular with them. They'll often purchase the cards, or purchase a sort of a number of them, and then hand them out to their clients. Because again, a lot of the time you're sitting in a session and the therapist saying, so what's going on and what are you feeling? And there's like, what am I feeling? And a lot of times people can't get much further than good and bad. And then if you're looking for a little bit of a more nuanced sort of response, as I say, for the therapists, it's a helpful tool they can give to their clients. But as I say, I'm a mediator, and I also use them. So I think folks in those helping professions, the therapists, social workers, mediators, it's great for them, and certainly great for their clients.
I love that. A nice tool that therapists can work with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, that's great. And then that's not all he does for the mental health world outside his coaching and his therapy sessions and everything. He's also got a great stick I know he's proud of, and he's got some books I know he's proud of, all relating to mental health, of course, or I wouldn't bring it up on this show. John, you could take the lead. What else do you want to talk about next? I'm very proud to have seen your portfolio since you've connected and you've been kind enough to give me some sneak peeks on some of the stuff.
There you go. Well, yeah. So again, my focus in a way has been, as I say, as a mediator, is helping people to find peace together.
Sure.
As I say, the cards, the feeling and needs cards, are definitely a powerful tool that help in that regard. But another thing that I was aware of as a mediator is how I suppose a primary function that we perform as mediators is ensuring what I'd call structural balance. In other words, if there's two people in a conflict, you want to make sure that this person's perspective is heard and validated, and so is this other one. And when I'd observe absent a mediator, is what I would describe a lot of what I'd call lopsided conversations. So to me, that would mean one person was dominating the airwaves. They were doing all the talking. But it could also mean that the person that wasn't doing the talking had framed what the issue was about. And then that other person that was doing a lot of the talking was actually frustrated because they were trying to say, your frame for what we're talking about is wrong. So mediators, one of the things we do is classically is would say the one person share your perspective, and then we would summarize it. And then we turn to the other and we say, share your perspective, and we summarize that. So that's where we bring in that structural balance. But who wants to have a mediator tagging around with them? And
right.
the late Stephen Covey, he was famous for his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's a great video of his where he talks about being given a talking stick. So a talking stick, and I have a couple that I'm going to show. I've got this one. I call this the Zulu beaded talking stick, and this one is really a giraffe. They're both talking sticks, and essentially, as much as these are great, and I'd encourage folks to acquire one, you could literally use anything like a pen or a feather or a rock, but it's really a tool that indicates who's the speaker. And it makes it crystal clear. So as long as I've got the talking stick, I'm the speaker. And then if you and I were having a conversation, Vincent, I would get to share, and your task would be to demonstrate to me that you've understood me, not to debate me, not to argue with me, not to invalidate me in any way, just to say, I hear you, John, this is what you're saying, this is your perspective. And when I feel heard, I say, all right, thank you, Vincent. And then I hand the stick over to you, and then it's your turn. And that's, again, essentially a lot of the time what mediators are doing. And when we do that, when we slow things down and make sure everyone's voice is heard, everyone's perspective matters, it doesn't guarantee, but it increases the likelihood that you're going to get to a good resolution, or at least have an understanding of why it is that you're disagreeing with one another, and doing that in a respectful way. So again, I have, as I say, the two. I found this giraffe one, and the reason why I like the giraffe is, again, from the world of nonviolent communication of Marshall Rosenberg. The mascot for the movement is the giraffe, because the giraffe needs a massive heart to pump the blood up its long neck. So it's like a big-hearted animal. So that's why we have the giraffe. And I find that I use this a lot for the more delicate, sensitive conversations. Sure. There are other times when we come together and it can be a little bit more celebratory. And that's why I like this one. And you can see it's modeled after a microphone. But anyway, so yeah, those are two other, I think, really helpful communication tools that help people stay on track. I always think between, if you can have the talking sticks and the cards, you're well on the way and way ahead of the pack in terms of getting to a good resolution.
I love it. I think it's really important how you're just, again, making it accessible to different type of learners. People perceive information differently. People like to learn differently. Some people are glued to their phone. It is what it is. It's the digital age. Some people, like, I'm a physical book person, not an ebook person. So I love the physical resources. Now, throughout your experiences as a professional using these resources, as you work on your own mental health as well, what is one of your favorite takeaways you found from maybe someone using the talking stick, someone using the apps? Do you have any awesome just breakthrough stories that you could share with our audience?
Well, again, as I say, not so much that I'll share about others, other than to say I've seen it over and over again in terms of my practice as a mediator, how allowing people to have their experience acknowledged makes a huge difference. Again, I think what happens when we get into conflict, we're sort of attached to our version of reality. Sure. And struggle acknowledging that the other person has another sort of perspective. But if we don't find a way of acknowledging the truth that each of us has a perspective, people get stuck. And so I suppose that sort of insight, sort of, as I say, has driven things. I have an example that I will share.
Please, yes.
I was trying to think about some examples, but one was some time ago. I was doing a mediation between a manager and their administrative assistant, and the administrative assistant was a young woman. She had a son, and he had a medical condition. As a result of it, the mom was having to sort of take time off for doctor's appointments and was struggling getting to work on time. And in any event, she eventually could see that she was, that her manager wasn't happy with her, and she approached her manager and shared with her in confidence what was going on, and shared a little bit about her son's mental health condition. Was just his medical condition, I should say. And in her mind, that was a private conversation she was having with her manager. And a couple of weeks later, another manager came up to her and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your son." And she's like, "Hey, what do you mean? How do you know?" And she said, "Well, your manager told us at this meeting." And so then when she went and confronted her manager and said what happened, instead of the manager owning it and saying, "Yes, I did, my bad, I'm sorry," she said, "I would never do that. And I rest assured I'd never do it in the future." So again, what I've found is that unless people get the truth acknowledged of what's happened, we get stuck. So again, to me, the cards have been super helpful in that regard. But the other thing I'll just sort of say more in a general way, but also for me personally, another thing I'm a big fan of, and it does tie in with the cards, is I think he was originally from Australia, Dr. David Rock.
Okay.
And he's written a book called The Brain at Work. He's a neurobiologist. And he has a nice phrase, which is name it to tame it. So again, it's that thing of knowing what you're feeling, but when we acknowledge what we're feeling, it significantly reduces our emotional charge. So that I found to be a super helpful thing for myself. And another thing I found helpful in general for myself and also for others is, it's another one of these little catchy phrases, is feel it to heal it. Yeah. So again, so often we're not even connected with what we're feeling, which doesn't even get us into the ballpark of being able to feel it to heal it. But when we can acknowledge what we're feeling, and instead of saying to ourselves, oh, I shouldn't be frustrated, or I shouldn't be disappointed, or pretending that we're not feeling what we're feeling, just allowing ourselves to feel things, to me, has really been powerful. And so instead of sort of accumulating pain and baggage from the past and continuing to compound our original wounds, we start healing them and reducing that emotional charge.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And just the way you go about explaining everything makes it so easy to understand and, of course, adapt. Everyone, stick around a little longer. We'll find out where to get in touch with John, his website, all the links you need for that. But as humans, we always try to stay mentally healthy ourselves. Say we don't have your resources available right now, John. What are some other things that have worked for you to improve your mental health? Everyone knows I always credit exercise in the morning to keeping me mentally healthy for the day.
Right. Well, I think you're right. I think it's all about a healthy life means we have healthy habits. And so it's like, what are those healthy habits? So for me, something that we have a high degree of control over is nutrition. And so are we putting toxins in our body, or are we putting healthy food in our body? So for me, I've been slowly in my life, sort of, as I say, tilting ever more towards healthier eating. And at this point, I try as much as possible to stick away from processed foods. I trust whole foods. While I'm just on that subject of nutrition, like this morning, I had a raw clove of garlic. So every day I start my day with a raw clove of garlic, and I found a way. This is my little garlic hack of doing it without having garlic breath. I chop it up finely, put it in a spoon, drizzle honey over it, and I take that, because garlic is a great sort of healer, and it keeps us healthy. So I'd start off with nutrition where I have a whole lot of control over it. I'm also a big fan of Wim Hof and his breath work. So when I go to bed in the evening, I've got a little recording that I listen to, and I do breath work. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't know if you've heard of the 4-7-8. You inhale deeply to the count of 4, all right, hold the breath to the count of 7, and then blow out to the count of 8. The other thing that I do, and I don't get to it every day, but I try to think of it like brushing my teeth, is meditate. Mm-hmm. 15 minutes is 1% of the day, and meditation is a powerful tool for reducing stress. But it's also, I always think of meditation as like going to the mental gym, because most meditation practices are about strengthening your capacity to focus. Sure. For the most part, people will say, put your attention on your breath, or put your attention on, say, a mantra, or they'll say, count to 10. And then they'll say, and when your mind wanders and you think of that burrito you're going to have for lunch or whatever it is, right? They don't say beat up on yourself. They say, bring your attention back to the breath, the counting, the mantra, whatever it is. And that's strengthening your capacity to say, when something's upset me and you realize I can't do anything about it right now, instead of being completely consumed about it, you can put your attention elsewhere. It's not revolutionary, or like no one's like, wow, who is the first guy that's mentioned meditation? So I think these things that are good for mental health, we know what they are. The other one you mentioned is exercise. I'm a pretty regular walker, but one of the things I saw was that when the weather was bad or that got dark too early, I wasn't always getting in my walk. Right. So I bought an exercise bike, and I've positioned it in front of my television. And so most evenings I'll do a half an hour, And about 20 minutes of that is that high intensity. So I'll go high resistance, 30 seconds on, 90 seconds off. High resistance, 30 seconds
Love
on, going
that.
as fast as I can. So all of those things. And of course, sleep, making sure my room is dark and I'm getting my good night's sleep, getting to bed early. To me, all of those things are the ways in which we take good care of ourselves and ensure that we're positioning ourselves for I would call holistic health, which includes, of course, mental health.
Love everything you said there. Again, he's on fire today. The nutrition, of course, I do my best to get meal plans and have just more good meals in the day than bad, but I've learned to be kinder to myself where if I feel like having a cheat meal or something, I will. But I'm like you, moving towards just doing more good than bad. Sleep is important. I'm a grandpa at night. I like to go to bed early because I like to make sure like 6 hours is like a bare minimum. If I'm not, I used to love to get more than that. Unfortunately, now it's not as easy. Everyone, nutrition, sleep, exercise. Go ahead.
Right. I was going to say, I can hear in my background the whistling of my kettle. As soon as we're done, I'm going to have to jump up. I'm glad, but I can, and it's I'm busy brewing ginger because every day at the end of the day, I have a ginger, lemon, pomegranate with a little bit of stevia, and it's an amazing little drink. And ginger is a super helpful thing. So again, what I've tried to do is to get habits that I do regularly. Like, it's like someone might say, oh, that garlic idea, that's great. But if you do it once, that's nice. But I think with these habits are things that we do on a regular basis. But I'd also agree with you. We also have to be kind and reward ourselves and let ourselves sometimes have those little indulgences and those treats.
I had someone on the show, and I feel bad. I can't recall who it was, but they came on the show and they work with a lot of retired people looking at encore career part of their life. And they all have these rituals. She said the comment, these people that are working, living older, living longer, and still working, they have these rituals where, okay, one she said was he has a cigar every Friday at the end of the work week. One is he goes to do this at a certain time. And I think that's so cool because everything with reason, right? Not overdoing things isn't as bad for you, right? So it's just a good way to reward yourself. But since the kettle's going off, we're going to get him out of here soon. But before we get you with the contact info, if you could have any advice for someone who's struggling right now, John, who really can't see the light at the other end of the tunnel today, which piece of advice would you mind offering?
Well, I think the best that I can say is kindness. In other words, and when I think of kindness, I like thinking that we're kind to the world, to those around us. But I think we so often neglect to take care of ourselves, and we sort of worry that we're being self-centered, narcissistic, or in some other way. But in my schematica of how I see the world, I point upwards in terms of my beliefs of like I want to be good in that direction. I want to have a loving relationship with God, but I also want to have a good relationship with myself. And if I'm not loving myself and taking care of myself, how can I be available to be loving in the world? So I think that's often the piece that we miss or we neglect, especially those of us that are more caring individuals that care about others. We put our needs second, and that's sometimes appropriate, but it's also important that we don't feel guilty or bad because we're taking good care of ourselves. And sometimes that means having healthy boundaries where we let people know that certain behaviors are not okay, and in doing that, we communicate to them, this is not okay, but this is. So I would say be kind, take care of yourself, self-compassion, and then also have healthy boundaries in terms of as a sort of a practice for ensuring that.
I love the boundaries part. Something I've adapted over the last 5 years when I finally started taking entrepreneurship more seriously was the bedtime. The what am I doing in my off time? You hear it's cliche now, you have 24 hours in the day. How are you going to use them? But it's true. I do my whiteboard before bed every night. That way, when I wake up, my day's planned. I know exactly what I need to do. And then I'm able to actually get more accomplished throughout the day because I'm not stressed. I'm not jumping around. I'm organized. I don't go on email when I wake up or social media when I wake up and go down those rabbit holes. It's important to respect your time, respect yourself. And John does a great job at all of that. I can't thank you enough, John, for being our partner for this podcast season, this quarter. Where can we find you online and where can we check out some of the offerings you showed us here today?
The best place is the Empathy Set. So it's empathyset.com. For those, I also have a johnford.com website, which is really more my mediation practice. But in terms of what we've been talking about, the communication tools, the cards, the app, the talking sticks, it's the Empathy Set where they want to go. In fact, there's also actually there's the Empathy Set app. If you want to get a flavor of what the app's about, it's a web-based version at empathyset.app.com.
I'm going up here for that way after the show. I'm updating the website we got on file there. We've got the johnford.com, which is a great place to start because you get to see all about John on there, but we're going to go ahead and get those updated. This is a mental health break. Be sure to head to those websites that he just offered. He has a lot of value there, a lot of free resources as well, so be sure to go check them out. My name is Vincent A. Lancy. You can find me online at my name, on social media at my name, or vincentalancy.com. And with that, we are signing off today across the country. We made it happen. John, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vincent. It was my treat.